Another week in Soccer We Trust YouTube fam. Another weekend of league starting and big games to talk about, especially as it pertains to the player pool of the U.S. men's national team. So after you hit like and subscribe as we look to get to 10,000 subs, let's get after it. Yes! What is up, everybody? And welcome to that one teammate of yours who wore their shin guards on the outside of their socks. His favorite podcast is Soccer We Trust. I'm Jimmy Cream Cheese Conrad alongside Charlie Chuck Wagon Davies and Hollywood Heath Pearce. And we're excited to dive into and discuss the U.S. men's national team players who are embarking on their respective journeys, I should say, in Spain and Italy this weekend as La Liga and Serie A kick off. And of course, we're going to touch upon all the big games happening around the world for our player pool. But first, big news dropping a couple hours ago. Sergino Dest might be making the move from Barcelona to Manchester United, who I like to call moving from one dumpster fire to another for different reasons. Barcelona's are more financial, and Manchester United feels like a lack of identity, lack of success in recent times. How do you feel about this move, Heath? I'll come to you first. Sergino Dest potentially being reunited with Erik ten Hag. He did spend his one season at Ajax with Erik ten Hag.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I like it or not. I'm just letting it sink in. Like you said, the dumpster fire thing is a legitimate issue when you look at just the morale and the mood of the team. I haven't felt any sort of big swing this year. Have either of you felt like Manchester United are now in a new light or a new? I mean, it's a new opportunity because it's the beginning, but like I don't feel, it's a deep thing to get out of that. I feel like I personally, if I was Sergino Dest, wouldn't, but like I've also never played at Barcelona, and my other option besides Barcelona isn't Manchester United, so he's in a different world than me.
I don't. When I look at Barcelona, Charlie, if they can work out their finances, that team is stacked in almost every single position. And as Thomas Rongen, our excellent guest yesterday, stated, there's not a lot of competition at that right back spot, so he could potentially get a lot of minutes. Manchester United, he'd probably play for sure because I think they're trying to maybe throw in a player swap with Diogo Dalot and maybe try to make something like that happen. Barcelona obviously just looking for money because they got to solve some of their issues. But if you were just from a playing perspective and kind of how things are being built, would you rather go back to a manager that you know who trusts you with Erik ten Hag and go play for United? Or would you rather stay at Barcelona and kind of see what Xavi has in store for those guys?
Jimmy, Heath, you both know managers can make or break your career. And in this case, Dest had his most successful year as a professional under ten Hag. So, of course,
Charlie, his only professional year as a professional was under 10 Hag.
Exactly.
And we thought that, but we said the same about Thomas Tuchel. We were like, this is a dream made in heaven. Thomas Tuchel, who gave him his start at
good point.
At Borussia Dortmund, we're like, this is great. But like, exactly, it is different because it's not Ajax.
And I think what ten Hag is trying to do at United is, I'm trying to bring my Ajax philosophy and a lot of the players I managed at Ajax to Manchester United. So I think if ten Hag is saying, I want you to come to United, we will pay for you and you're going to play, 100% you make the move, because Xavi has shown he doesn't have full confidence in Sergino Dest. Even though he plays him at times, I don't think Xavi says, you're my guy for the future. Now, it's great if you can stay there, fight for your place. I think that builds character. But ultimately, I think where Sergino needs to work the most in his game is defense, his defensive abilities. I think Thomas Rongen touched on it a lot yesterday, was for Sergino Dest to improve, to feel that we feel confident, he's going to have to defend. And he's going to have to play in teams that typically don't dominate. Because when you're playing Barca, you have possession 90% of the game. Teams are on the back foot. You can fly forward, and you're going to. But how often is he forced to defend and really be pinned back into his own half? So I think with United, because they're not as dominant as they once were in the past, there's a lot of the high press. There's a lot of the defensive responsibilities. Very physical league. Ultimately, it's going to challenge him to be a better player, a better right back, and a better defensive right back. So I like the move.
There's something about
Jimmy. Let me ask you this though, Jimmy, real quick, just in terms of the challenge, because I agree with Charlie. When you put it on paper, it makes total sense, right? But the risk of that is that, does Erik ten Hag have the time to develop Sergino Dest at a club the size of Manchester United? Does he have freedom to say, I'm going to give you game after game? In training, I get it. The speed of the game, the way in which you have to defend, even if you are Manchester United, who I would consider like your 4 to 8 or 4 to 6, 4 to 7 in the Premier League. Yes, they're going to dominate some teams, but they're also going to have to play honestly to do it. And I think that's great for his game. But if it doesn't match right away, if there's not that development or that commitment to his development, Jimmy, do you think it's a potential of another year or two lost for him of somebody who maybe could have ended up somewhere else. I mean, again, the grass is always greener. I know that, but like, just curious your thoughts on it.
No, well, I agree with Charlie that I don't believe that Xavi is fully bought in on Sergino Dest and what he provides. I think that there's elements of his game that he likes, but I don't think he's the complete player, as Thomas said yesterday, and as I think we all agree. So going to Manchester United and being thrown into the fire in a position where they do need some help, and I think he would upgrade them going forward, but we want to see how he does defensively. Now, for better or for worse, anytime I think about Sergino Dest having an opportunity to be pinned back against an opponent, I remember PSG at Barcelona in the Champions League, and Kylian Mbappe scored 3 goals or 4 goals at the Camp Nou, like absolutely ate him up. And so, I mean, obviously Mbappe is one of the best players in the world, and that was a tough afternoon for Sergino Dest in particular. But I feel
like everybody has that story, though.
Even Alphonso Davies. We're talking Alphonso Davies got beasted by Mbappe. So
no, it's fair. It's fair. And
also, Jimmy, what happened to Charlie's voice? What were you up to, Charlie? How'd you lose that voice here?
I'm telling you, it's I got a little it's a little parched from just Minnesota. Okay. I'm telling you, the All-Star week was a lot of screaming on stage.
Takes it out of you.
Yeah.
A lot of just wanted to address that, Jimmy. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
We've got an R&B singer with us today.
We got a crooner with us right now. All right. Before we continue the conversation about Sergino Dest, we want to let everybody know that we in Soccer We Trust are finalists for the Best Sports Podcast category. Let's go. And being a finalist is awesome news, but we want to go one step further, of course, and win this thing. So for those of you that have nominated us, thank you so much. We're going to need your help and support for one more final step. Some of you are going to be selected at random, and you got to check your inboxes and say, yes, I fully commit my love and adoration and respect and everything else and allegiance to in Soccer We Trust, and that'll hopefully get us into the fun. We want to win a trophy. That's really what we want. So let's do this. We just wanted to throw that out there. All right, let's talk about La Liga overall. I know Sergino Dest is packaged into this. We also have Yunus Musah, who's playing for Valencia. He's looking like he's going to start this weekend against Girona, which is interesting. We'll see if Tati Castellanos starts. NYCFC product, who absolutely owned MLS over the last 18 months, has now made the move to Girona, another club that's owned by City Football Group, just to throw that out there so everybody knows. I assume Girona, who just came out from Segunda B, or the second division in Spain, are not going to want to go back down now that they got up to the top. So they're going to splash some money. They've already made some signings. It's going to be a tough test. Valencia's at home, first match for Gennaro Gattuso, and it looks like Musah is going to start in what looks like central position, and hopefully more of an 8 than a 6, but we'll see what it looks like. delaTorre, Celta Vigo is playing today, and this weekend against Espanyol. It doesn't look like delaTorre is going to start, but I like his chances of having some involvement. They have Luis Campos, who's also consulting with PSG in the sporting director role. Very, very bright. He helped Lille and Monaco help them win Liga titles over the last 4 or 5 years. So he knows what he's doing, knows how to build teams. And I'm obviously thrilled that he identified Luca delaTorre as a good signing. So hopefully he'll get some minutes. But those are the 3 games that are included U.S. men's national team players. Let's talk about Yunus Musah. Charlie, I'll come back to you, Mr. Crooner, that's going to be singing for us at the end with a smoky voice.
Of course.
What do you think about Yunus Musah getting the start for Gennaro Gattuso? I mean, whatever people think about Gattuso, I'm just happy that he's thinking Musah centrally instead of out wide.
I couldn't be more thrilled that he's playing centrally, 1. 2, that he has Gattuso as a coach, 1 who will really help him develop as a central midfielder, because he'll have him think about the responsibilities of a midfielder from a defensive perspective.
Right.
And I think that's where Yunus Musah can really improve. But also, I think playing centrally in the Liga, he's going to get in a lot of those advanced positions, because we've seen it in preseason. He's flying through the lines on the dribble and gets into the box. Can he be a little bit more dangerous now? Because I think for Valencia to have a lot of success this year, to really try and get into the top 4, they're going to need him to have a hand in a lot of goals and assists. So I'm pumped. It's only going to make our national team better when Yunus Musah, because Yunus Musah is the most gifted technically that we have playing in the midfield for the U.S. So I think it's a great move, because typically we don't always see some of our top guys playing in the position that they play with the national team, with their club team.
Right.
A perfect example for me right now is Jesus Ferreira. So Jesus Ferreira in the All-Star game was playing as a winger, and then with Dallas, sometimes he's playing as a 10 and they play like Franco Jara. And I'm thinking to myself, play the guy at the 9. That's where he's playing with the national team. Don't play them out of position. You want that continuity of club and country playing the same position. So, I'm a big fan of Yunus Musah playing centrally at Valencia.
So
Michael Jimmy is.
Hold on. Let me give you some context. I want to give everybody some context on Valencia, just so they know and have an idea of the environment that Yunus Musah is currently in outside of the manager. Their owner, Peter Lim, is a bit. He's got a bit of a trigger finger where he just fires guys. So they got to the final of the Copa del Rey last season, losing to Real Betis, and they had for me one of my favorite managers in all of Spain, Jose Bordalas, who helped Getafe get 5th. Like 3 or 4 years ago. So, I mean, he knows how to get the most out of players. They fired him and the team president. Peter Lim's like, you guys are out, brought in Gattuso. And they've had to balance the books. So they sold one of their best players, Gonzalo Guedes, to Wolves just this past week for $33 million. That's opening up more time and space for Yunus Musah. And obviously there's going to probably be an emphasis on youth if they're trying to balance the books, and they're going to give him opportunities to shine. So I just wanted to give some context to everybody. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Yunus?
I mean, for me, it's just a consistent full season of starting. That's it.
Right,
all that other stuff, I agree with Charlie 100%. Those are the things that are going to, I think, as a result of that, be what we see come of him as he adds tools or more tools to his tool belt. But that's for me the main thing is when you mentioned Luca delaTorre a minute ago, Jimmy, I was thinking about, okay, it could be a good situation. And then I forgot that Luca delaTorre is 24. Like, he needs minutes too. And this is a situation where if he's a contributor, okay, I'd probably give Yunus Musah that another year if he was getting 30 minutes a game, as like first off the bench, second off the bench, guaranteed minutes every single game type of squad player. I'd be happy with that. Now, but the roles are reversed. Luca delaTorre is 24, probably not going to get a ton of minutes, could get some minutes sparingly. But Yunus Musah now has this opportunity to take a huge step, and that could be to start the entire year. By the way, Jimmy or Charlie, when you hear the word Gattuso, do you not hear it in Bob Bradley's voice the amount of times Bob used to mention that name in camps? It's I literally hear it, Gattuso. Remember how many, that was
Gattuso.
Like 2000s AC Milan, 90s AC Milan were a peak part of our national team careers in terms of video we watched and style of play. So I can't get that out of my head every time somebody says that. But yeah, for Yunus Musah, I think I want to see 30 games and most of those started if possible. That would be a huge step forward for me, just in terms of establishing himself as a professional, not just the one that's like, yeah, he's got all these tools and potential, but he's still young. Like, he should be playing, and he needs to prove that. So he's 19. I want to make sure everybody knows that. So in your contrast with Luca delaTorre at 24, which I forgot he was that, he feels like an elder statesman with regard to our national. It's weird when we say that now, but yeah.
But when you think about it, Charlie, Yunus Musah, we've talked about it a lot, about how he needs to get on the end of stuff. He needs to provide the final assist, or he needs to score some goals. How do you think he fits in and where he finds the space as it pertains to your ideal starting lineup for the U.S. men's national team? Because those pockets that maybe we want him to occupy, at least in theory, might not be available for him to exploit. You know what I'm trying to say? So I'm kind of curious as to, I mean, the way Valencia are going to set up probably going to be different than the U.S. What do you think he could maybe do with Valencia to help find those sweet spots to really excel with the U.S.? I mean, his talent's undeniable. It's just going to happen because he's got so much goddamn potential that he's going to end up getting that right. But how can we get him there quicker? What do you think he needs to do to make that happen?
Well, I think he's already doing it. I mean, in this preseason, which is finding those spaces to be able to play on the half turn in midfield. So you're not necessarily always checking to the ball. And his distribution seems to be a lot better. Just connecting passes, playing through the lines. I think for him, it's really getting a chance to play the 1-2s in midfield. With Christian Pulisic and Brent Aronson, Timo Weah, whoever comes into the midfield, even Weston McKinney, being able to play quickly and efficiently with 1 and 2 touches. If he can do that, I think that's where he's going to really develop. And to answer Dave L's question, Jimmy's wearing the 2009 World Cup qualifying kit. Actually, when we beat Honduras, that's the same kit we wore on the road. So, yeah, shout out to
You know who I think about when I see that kit? I think about Connor Casey for some reason.
So do I.
Yeah,
when I think about him, I see him in that kit. It's weird, but like there's certain kits that I saw in people and I was like, yeah, that was made for you. And that was a Connor Casey kit right there.
That was the Connor Casey kit, who did end up making the 2010 World Cup team. So let's pivot over then to, if you want to talk about Dest, you can, but let's finish up this La Liga talk. delaTorre, it's not that I want Celta to lose. You know, I like Iago Aspas, and that club is pretty much just thrives in mid-table purgatory for the most part. Maybe they'll scrape into the Europa Conference League at 7th or 8th in La Liga. But I feel like they're going to have to lose for Luca delaTorre to get some valuable minutes. If he's not playing, obviously that gives you some concern, Heath Pearce. But you still think he's on the plane to Qatar?
I still think he's on the plane to Qatar.
100%.
He's
his
form up and
the
Sebastian Lletget form down, I think slots him into that. I think where the question mark becomes is not on Luca delaTorre. I think he's
whoa. You think Lletget still has an outside chance?
No.
Getting in the team?
I'm saying that his form trending downward, and Luca delaTorre getting his chances, improving himself, which again leads me to my points about what he could do. Does Luca delaTorre have enough in his bag at the La Liga level to be impactful over 90 minutes? That's what I want to be able to see. We've seen in the national team, we see flashes. Fans love this guy, right? Because he's fun to watch. It's an attractive style of play. We were critical of him in the beginning because it was a lot of side to side. And then we started to see him advance with passing and driving with the ball. And I think those are the things he's going to have to be. We say this about Timo Weah, why he didn't start every game last year, is it doesn't add up to a lot over a season, right? For the national team, he's had bursts and flashes and huge moments for us. But at the club level, you know, it's the Steve Trundle, like 7s and 8s. You know, I don't need 10s and I don't need 3s every week. Can you be impactful in your minutes to prove that I can give you more and more minutes, as opposed to being a guy who can come carry the rhythm, close out games, be good in possession? Like, do you have a few other things that you can add and contribute to?
Yeah, I'm excited to see Luca delaTorre play. But go ahead, Charlie.
I was going to say Elijah Armstrong. One, I wasn't late for the podcast, so that's one. But two, you're spot on. There are a group of guys who are in this U.S. men's national team pool, and whether they play or they don't play for their clubs, they will be going to Qatar. Mm-hmm. Matt Turner is one of them. Christian Pulisic. I mean, he came in the 65th minute for Mount against Everton. I hope he starts in this next one because that attacking trio was not good. And then, yeah, exactly. You touched on Sergino Dest. In and out at Barca. Looks like he'd be going to United. He's going to be going to Qatar regardless of what happens. So as long as these guys are healthy, obviously.
Yeah, and speaking of health and speaking of Tim Weah, since you brought him up, Heath, he was suspended for Lille's opening game last weekend in Liga. He's also going to miss the second game this weekend due to injury. And it looks like Paulo Fonseca, who used to coach Roma, and he's just way into the attacking stuff. So I actually think that's going to help Timo Weah a lot. He's not so great, for me at least, defensively as a manager. But he's saying that he's dealing with a foot injury that's going to keep him out of this weekend's game against Nantes. But he should be back to face PSG on August 21st. So we'll see if he ends up making his debut. Oh, why not? If you're going to make your debut for the season, why not against PSG? Just come out.
Why not? And
absolutely flying.
Fire. So.
Absolutely flying. Yeah, so that should be something to watch and obviously keep you up to date on that. Just moving around to different spots in Europe, let's talk a little Gio Reyna. Let's go Bundesliga. Did not play, but was on the bench against Bayer Leverkusen in Dortmund's 1-0 win. When asked about his status, the manager of Borussia Dortmund, Edin Terzic, said they missed a lot, or he was referring to another player as well. But Gio missed a lot over the last year. Of course, we're more than happy that they were able to join us during preseason, but we'd rather give them one more day than not enough days. They're both doing well. They both got playing time in a friendly before. They're on the right track. We're hoping to get them back much more playing time in the near future. So he's healthy and ready to go. So I'm very curious to see if Gio Reyna is going to get any minutes this particular weekend.
They play Freiburg, which I think is a great. It's
on Friday.
You know. Yeah.
And today.
So that's
today. Ask Ricardo Pepi about that Freiburg team.
Yeah. I mean, they took we'll know who Grilic is. But yeah, Freiburg have gotten even better than last year, and they already were really good last year. So it'd be a game that I'd love to see Gio Reyna kind of get his confidence back. I mean, after that, I think they play Werder Bremen, which could be a good place for him to come back in after a while. But, I don't want to overread into those comments because you're like, yeah, in theory, you are giving him an extra day, but you're also like, but then why is he on the bench? Is it on the bench to get him back into the squad? Great, could be, but at the same time, you're like, but you're in control. Can you give him 10 minutes? Can you give him 15? You know,
you both know sometimes you might not physically be ready, or the coach doesn't think, but he just wants you in the environment just to bring you in and make sure you feel like you're part of the team. And so I think that could be one of those things where he was never, I guess.
Oh, Reyna! I'm reading Reyna didn't in the comments. Reyna didn't travel with the team for today's game.
Oh boy.
Okay, well, that says all you need to know about what his status is going to be. Well, if anybody else in the comments knows anything about Ricardo,
I hope that's true, because we're just chucking it out there blindly. So
Bayer Leverkusen is hosting Augsburg. So Ricardo Pepi, who didn't get to play until the last 15 minutes of the game, when the game was completely out of reach against Freiburg, doesn't look like he's going to start again. But maybe that changes based on what I'm seeing. He doesn't look like he's going to get the nod. But this is a tough one.
They play with two strikers, Jimmy. They play with two strikers. It's insane to me that your young star is not starting.
It is nuts. It's not even. It is nuts.
Like, I get it. When there's a one striker system and you can't show that, like, kind of Josh Sargent has shown he can switch out to the wings and be impactful for Norwich when Timo Pukki's playing up top. But when you play with two strikers, I would nobody does it anymore. If you're going to, why not let one of them be the player that you're trying to develop? The player you spent a ton of money on.
Sure, but Enrico Maassen, he wasn't one who was around, when they signed Ricardo Pepi. He might not be his style of player, very similar to what Thomas Rongen said yesterday, where Charlie Davies
with two strikers last year too, Jimmy.
But he wasn't a Ziggy Schmidt. Ziggy Schmidt was Charlie Davies is not my type of striker, and so maybe.
And I'm like, what are you talking about, Ziggy? How am I not a striker?
I'm everybody's kind of striker, baby. Let's go.
I fit into everything. What are you talking about?
Yeah. But with regard to Ricardo, I wonder what's holding him back. What are we not seeing that feels so obvious that, why, to your points, Heath, why would he not get that run? And did they have to get slapped around by Bayer Leverkusen to finally say, let's go with this Ricardo Pepi kid? I don't know. I don't know how many more 3, 4, 5-0 ass slappings you can get before you get to just be like, all right, we'll just see what he does. And then it's going to be up to him to make the most of those opportunities, of course. But giving him 5, 10, 15 minutes here or there, yeah, that's got to suck. I just feel like there's more to this story than maybe we know, and we'll have to dig. We clearly have people in the comments that know. So if you guys want to chime in, hit us up on Twitter, ISWT Pod as well. If you've got any insight, any dirt on the coaching at Augsburg and what they're doing over there. But I don't know. That's interesting. All right, let's go back to another league in Europe. We'll go to Italy, which is starting Serie A. We only have one American participated in Serie A right now. His name is Weston McKennie. He plays for Juventus, and he's currently hurt. Though he dislocated his shoulder, for those that don't know. Apparently, he started to do some light training this past week, which is great news. He is looking like he'll be back for the August 22nd game, or at least be available for it against Sampdoria. So we'll see. I bet you they don't rush him back. I'd expect maybe the week after. But any thoughts on Serie A at all? Charlie Davies, I'll come to you first. It is one of our properties at CBS Sports and Paramount Plus. You could love it. And I want to throw out there, I think it's the league that's the most intriguing of any of the top 5 leagues in Europe, because it's the one that's most wide open.
Yeah. I would say I'm really interested to see what Roma looks like when you get Dybala. They just look like, it looks like Jose Mourinho he's been quiet too. I feel like they could surprise a lot of teams and people with this year. Juve again is I don't know if I don't think they're going to finish top 2. I don't. I think AC Milan is going to be strong again this year. It's their title to lose, but I think Roma is the team that will surprise people this year.
Roma's my Italian club, so I'm loving everything that you're saying, and I agree with you that with the signings that Roma's made, they're going to be unbelievable going forward. Especially if them keeping Zaniolo, Tammy Abraham, and Dybala, awesome. The back line for me is a little sketch, but you never know. Jose Mourinho's obviously gifted in that side of the ball. Now with regard to Juve, they got some question marks as well. Paul Pogba is hurt right now with a knee injury. He's obviously looking to get back for the World Cup. You got Chiesa probably not around, Heath, until January. Could have been a good opportunity for McKinney to really put a stamp on things, especially with Pogba out. He might still have that opportunity, but it looked like that was going to be the big issue. If you're Maxi Allegri, the manager of Juve, you go on McKinney, you go on Pogba. I mean, no disrespect to Weston, but Pogba is a World Cup winner, and he's done some things. He's a pretty special player.
He is, but When I think about Weston McKennie, he's the one that I worry about the least playing. He just has an ability to be on the field and be impactful. Weirdly, he has, I think, the less sort of peaks in his game, but the most consistency across his game to be impactful. When he steps in, whether it was at Schalke, whether it was at Juventus, yeah, he didn't score the goals that you wanted through injuries last year, but he just looks comfortable. He looks like a contributor. I don't think about him at all, ever. When I think about some of our other young players, I go, like high highs, low lows. Can they find consistency in their game? But Weston McKennie's one that, yeah, against Paul Pogba, he's probably going to lose that battle. But he just seems like a player that's still going to do 30 to 40 games at starting 3/4 of those and maybe subbing in for a quarter of those. I had a bet that he wouldn't start 50% of his games in the first season at Juventus, and he did. He blew past that. And so just he's a player that I worry about in terms of competition because he is at that level. He's at Juventus level week in and week out. So yeah, that's my take on him.
So
let's see him injured, but yeah.
No, of course. But if he's going to get injured, I want it now and not a couple weeks leading into the World Cup. But let's do some hypotheticals. Everybody watching on the YouTubes, listening on any audio platform of your choice, hit us up on Twitter, ISWT Pod. The hypothetical, Charlie, I'll come to you first. If Christian Pulisic was going to make a move, would you like to see him potentially at Juventus? I know that rumor has been out there before, but it could be a nice landing spot for him. And especially with Chiesa out, he could be getting a lot of minutes leading up to the World Cup. Chiesa probably won't be back until after the World Cup in January. Would you want to see there's a couple layers to this because it's not only the team, but it's also the league and the style. Do you think he'd thrive at Juventus?
I do think he would thrive at Juventus. I think, the league's very defensive though. Especially teams that play Juve. So they'll dominate the possession. It's similar to how teams line up to the U.S. men's national team now when they play in CONCACAF. When teams are sitting back, they're going to kick Christian left and right. It's going to be super physical. But you are playing for Juve. You're going to have a lot of the ball. Right now, it'll be tough because he's not going to play over Angel Di Maria. And, you have Vlahovic up top. If Chiesa does come back, Chiesa is also going to play over Christian. I don't know if this is the move I would make. I don't know if I'd necessarily leave Chelsea for Juve.
I could see Allegri kind of doing the Tuchel, playing him as a wing back, because sometimes they spot it too.
Then no.
Honestly, because they have Danilo, he's okay, but he's not an outside back that I think they prefer, to be honest. And Alexandro on the other side, that's where I think their weak links are.
More defensive, though.
That's true. I'm just trying to say, because they had Juan Cuadrado at right back for a long time.
Yeah,
he just gets to the line and whips the ball. And I know Christian's not that type of player. He's more
but
like
the Italian style. The Italian style is so different too, Jimmy. Especially in a 3-back and wing back, you've got to come so far over and be in. It's a completely different type of even way different than the way that Chelsea can play, just because of the way their midfield moves and the three center backs. That just the Italian style, play in like 2 quadrants of a field. Like they tuck everything in really tight, allow the long switch, and then they all shift over. That kind of ground and discipline for somebody who is not a huge fan of defending, I think would be a huge lift. But again, could be. I don't want to write it off. Could be a challenge. Could be an eye opener for him. He seems to rise to challenges, but that might be one where he's like, nah, dog.
It might not be the right fit, but I just wanted to have that conversation. So I think it's worth having
that conversation.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, because I feel like his hand might be forced. He's going to want to make a move, and we're running out of time for the transfer window. So this conversation can only exist for a couple more weeks. All right, everybody, we're going to take our first and only break of In Soccer We Trust. When we return, we're going to talk about all the other games that our player pool is going to be playing in, including our boys at Leeds, who are away.
Save the world together.
Show them some swagger.
Step into the spotlight.
I hope your dad has insurance.
Secret Headquarters. Rated PG. Now streaming on Paramount Plus.
Well, after I was rudely interrupted by that commercial, welcome back to
Alex.
We Trust.
Alex, our producer,
is
so excited.
I was trying to hype up. It's gonna like a little tease. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. But I appreciate you guys and your support, of course. I do want to let everybody know Paramount Plus is the only place to stream every minute of every Serie A match, and you can quickly and easily sign up for your very own account right now with a free 1-month trial. That is awesome by going to ParamountPlus.com/Italy. Just click the Try It Free button and use promo code Italy for instant access to the best Italian club soccer, or calcio as they call it, available across all of your devices. So visit ParamountPlus.com/Italy and start streaming today. The league kicks off this weekend.
What
lots of big games. Yes, thank you very much.
You, Jim.
And welcome back to In Soccer We Trust. I'm Cream Cheese with Chuck Wagon and Hollywood.
Read what's behind me, just for if anybody can.
Jimmy Conrad, the 40-year-old rookie.
Yeah, I just
listen.
I just think
look
I
how
just
much
think
time
we need to own it. There was a blank whiteboard behind me. You told me you liked. You told Thomas wrong you liked the whiteboard, so I got out the whiteboard and wrote.
No, it's very nice. Whiteboards in a bathroom. Who has exactly right? Imagine if you could wipe your butt.
Are you guys not modern? Are you not modern creatives? You know, like you keep a notepad by your bed for when you have lucid dreaming, and then by your toilet for when you got time for like your thoughts of like, oh, I forgot we need more yogurt.
I like the work hard and keep wiping behind you. Work
hard.
Here we go.
All right, before we get into the Premier League, let's talk about another transfer that just happened from Mallorca to Middlesbrough, as Matthew Hoppe made the move from La Liga to the Championship, joining a U.S. men's national team teammate Zach Steffen at the same time. I know we touched upon this a little bit. How do you think he's going to do? Charlie, I'll come to you as our resident number 9. He just needs minutes. You know, I don't know. I don't know enough about Burrow to really speak to how I think he's going to fit into the team. I'll raise my hand and own that, but he just needs minutes. And I wonder how much this process of him moving around and going to Mallorca, maybe getting humbled a little bit in terms of, because he does have a lot of confidence in himself. And that's obviously a vital component to having success in anything that you do. But I wonder if that humility is going to help him become a better player and maybe take advantage of his opportunities when they come. Charlie, I'll come to you first.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. You can't get worse than in a situation that he was just in Mallorca. He wasn't playing. So
I blame Stu Holden. Steve Nash.
Steve Nash.
Kyle Leno. Who else is in that ownership group? The Phoenix Suns. Robert Starver.
Trying to sabotage the Americans.
Yeah, seriously.
I think it's a good move.
Nash is Canadian, dude. Of course he's trying to bring down the Americans. He wants Canada.
I think he'll play. So it's on him to really make a difference. When you go into an environment like this, you're being recruited because there's a need. Middlesbrough have had a poor start to the season. On top of that, I know Zach Steffen's getting minutes, but you look at the first game of the year, they drew 1-1 with West Brom, then they lose 3-2. There's a red card, in the injury time, but so far no. And then they lose 1-0 in the League's Cup to Barnsley at home. So obviously they need to fix some issues, and coming in as a new attacking player, I think he'll get opportunities.
Heath, Middlesbrough did finish 7th last year in the Championship, just 1 spot and 5 points away from a playoff. So they weren't too far with their current group, but they go get Zach Steffen and they go get Matthew Hoppe, outside of other moves that they made. But from an American perspective, those are the ones we're focused on. What do you think Matthew Hoppe can do here? Because as Charlie said, they're not off to a great start. So maybe he will get some minutes immediately.
His energy is the right energy for the Championship. Like that, I know applies right away, right? Running at guys, corner flag, high energy player, kind of controlled chaos, so to speak, I think plays really well. The problem is Middlesbrough has so many teams. I mean, the Championship has so many teams that there's always 1 or 2 teams that are never in the conversation that are fighting in the beginning that go, 4 or 5 straight and are now in contention to go up. So you don't get a lot of room for error. So you've got to have strong starts, especially when you have a team that's deserves to be on the top of the league. So I think he's step in right away and be a contributor. But does he have the final product to be able to do that over a full season? That's what I'm waiting to see, because we've lost a year from him. But I certainly think when you look at Josh Sargent or him as a winger within the Championship, who fits better? Sargent has some tools, but I still think Matthew Hoppe is a better winger, or even potential second striker there in terms of the energy that he brings. He's got some of that, honestly, Charlie Davies energy on the field, right? When he gets the ball, he wants to go, he wants to speed the game up. And I think that plays well in a system that sometimes there's a lot of second balls won. The ball can be in the air for long periods and you're just trying to get it down and go.
Okay, we're going to let Heath Pearce go, everybody. Apparently,
was it that bad, Jimmy? Was it that bad?
Nah, you know what? Your take was good.
Say it was good.
It was a
and
good
then
take.
kick me
It
out.
was a good take. We're just giving you the opportunity to not sit on the. I heard if you sit on the toilet too long, Heath, you get a hemorrhoid. So I'm just going to save you from any hemorrhoids for Heath Pearce. Hollywood Hemorrhoid Pearce, everybody. Let's give it up. There he is. Take it easy. So we lost Heath, Charlie, but Middlesbrough's taking on Sheffield United, who are one of the favorites to be on top of the table and get back to being promoted. So this is going to be a tough test again, but they're playing at home, so we'll see how they do. With regard to Josh Sargent and Norwich, they have where are they? Where are they playing? I'm looking for. Oh, they're playing away to Hull, and then Luton Town with Ethan Horvath is playing home to Preston. So some big games for our guys, and obviously we'll keep you up to date when we come back on Monday's show. We'll break it all down for you. But let's move to the Premier League. We got Wolves that are hosting Fulham. Now, Wolves just lost to Leeds, so we've got a good taste of Wolves. I watched all 90 minutes of that game, and obviously very excited for Jesse. And can I say something really quick, Charlie? Yes. I'm going to Manchester United Liverpool in about 10 or 11 days, so that's my flex of the day. But also, I'm in contact with Jesse Marsh. I'm going to contact with Jesse, and I'm going to go catch a training of Leeds the day after the Manchester United Liverpool game, and then I'm going to go to their League Cup game when they host Barnsley. So I'm absolutely buzzing right now. So I'm like way in on Leeds. But let's talk Wolverhampton really quick because they're playing Fulham. And Fulham are coming off a 2-2 draw, a very impressive 2-2 draw against Liverpool at home at Craven Cottage. Tim Ream looked good. Anthony Robinson, pretty solid for most of it, even though he's going up against Mo Salah. Now they're away from home. I think it's a little bit different against a Wolves team that maybe feel like they should have got a little bit more from that Leeds game. What are you thinking now that Fulham have kind of shown that they're going to be tough to play against, and Marco Silva, the manager's done a good job of getting them organized on both sides of the ball?
I would say whether you're playing home or away against Liverpool, it's Liverpool. And I know it might be a little different in terms of how the crowd gets involved. But if you can put a performance like they did against Liverpool, where they were resilient, they earned that draw too.
Yeah.
I would like my chances if I'm Fulham playing against Wolves. And so, I'm curious and really looking into is to see how Tim Ream can continue to perform, because yes, you play a high line, he gets burned. Everyone knows that. But if you're talking about sitting back, in some instances in the World Cup, you can't play a high line, you can't be up at midfield. Well, if you're talking about building out of the back and having a center back who's super experienced, then that works. And if he can play like he did against Liverpool for a full half season up until that World Cup,
you take him.
I could see him getting a call into the camp for sure.
Totally. I mean, if there's any one player that in our current player pool that reminds me of Greg Berhalter, it's kind of Tim Ream, right? I mean, Greg wasn't a crazy good athlete, but he's left-footed, played left center back, good passer of the ball, knew like where to be, good positioning. These are all things that I kind of relate to Tim Ream. So I could see him saying, I see a little bit of Tim Ream in me. And even when I coach, and I'm sure you do the same, when you see a player that has a player profile that looks kind of similar to yours, you're kind of pulling for that one, maybe subconsciously, but you're hoping that player does well because you relate to them in some capacity. So I could see Tim Ream, if he continues to play well, get that opportunity. So it's interesting when you bring up Fulham, they just got promoted. So a lot of their games, they're always going to be the underdog. There's no reason for them to extend themselves. So I don't think they're ever going to get into a high line situation too much because they're never going to want to get exposed, which really plays well for Tim Ream to have continued success. So interesting to see what Wolves do in particular. And obviously if Mitrovic can keep scoring goals, it takes a lot of pressure off the back line to have to be perfect. And that's also going to help Tim Ream and Anthony Robinson, right? This is a big opportunity for Robinson, who maybe his responsibility was different. Playing against Mo Salah, he's going to have to sit a little bit more. But I think in this particular game, they're going to ask him to try to get forward and try to put Wolves on the defense and play on the back foot, at least on that channel of the field.
And whip balls in for Mitrovic.
He's got to do it. I mean, my one concern, and maybe we talked about this before, Charlie, but it's been a while since I think we focused on Anthony Robinson. Sometimes his crosses aren't as varied as I'd like, right? The one that he can hit from deep that's kind of like fading to the back post. He's good at getting into good spots, but then he kind of hits them hard and low across the ground. Again, very dangerous if you get yourself into good spots. But it'd just be nice if we didn't have to rely on him having to beat a guy to get a cross off. If he could start hitting crosses off by just getting that half inch of space, we talked about it before with like Steve Ralston, who was a master at it, just creating enough of a gap so he could whip that ball in, or just being able to hit him from the top around the corner of the box and whipping them in to dangerous areas. I just think that would take Anthony Robinson's game to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, the different types of distribution. I mean, it comes down to technique, right? Floated versus chop.
Right.
If you can
Chop it
chop
back
it in.
across. Yeah.
You know, different types, different parts of the left flank, early service versus getting to the end line. The cutback ball versus low, hard driven to the near post. I think the more he can fine tune that last piece of his game, we're talking Champions League big time clubs, because he has all the athleticism that you can't teach. And I think the timing
And
of
he's
his
got the
runs.
mentality. Like, I'm
Yes.
gonna beat you today. I love that mentality about him. I'm gonna beat you. And you just want to have him to run into a coach who says, hey, you don't have to beat the guy every single time. You just have to beat him. Maybe you want to keep him on balance, because at some point, once you beat him, they're going to drop off. And if they're going to drop off, then you whip the ball in, baby, because you're giving the
All
space to
day.
do so. Right. So
Which for me would be like, oh, well, all of a sudden, if you have right backs who are whipping balls in, they have to be whipping balls into someone, right?
right.
If you're talking about targets for the U.S. men's national team, Timo Weah, and this is with all due respect to the guys that we have, Timo Weah, Christian Pulisic, Brendan Aronson, Gio Reyna, those Jesus Ferreira, those aren't guys who typically are going to be dominant in the air, right? So then you're like, well, who else do we have that could be ultimately maybe a game changing sub? Well, then there's Brendan Vasquez, there's Jordan Pifuk, there's
Haji
big
Wright.
target strikers, Haji Wright, who will get on the end of it, who are big targets. Weston McKinney is a giant in the air, but he's not going to be in those positions when all of a sudden a left back is overlapping and Anthony Robinson is whipping balls.
Right.
That you don't expect him to be there.
What do you say though if we're down? I think I don't necessarily expect to be down to England, but we're definitely going to be, I think, a little bit more conservative in our approach. I hope we're not. I hope we go right at them. But let's say we go down to Wales and now they're sitting back. We're going to need to bring on those subs. We're going to need Anthony Robinson to hit a variety of different crosses, because they're going to give him that space to go into. Mm-hmm. And it's just something that I wish he would get into his game. So there's going to be some situations that we're going to need the big target forwards as well. And for everybody going, well, if I don't want to start that player, there's still a lot of value for me. And I don't know if we talk about it enough, where if you're still whipping balls into the box, it doesn't mean you have to win the first one. You can win the second, or when the ball pops out, you have good press. Everybody's ready to go and kind of locked in.
McKinney right there for
right,
you.
Exactly. And Weston McKinney's great at getting on the end of crosses. But if you get that, you don't have to win the first one. It's how are you setting up for the second one? But that first cross into the area could be advantageous if the clearance isn't good enough.
If the runs are right,
good runs, right?
Space.
It doesn't matter how tall you are. Good runs
right.
and good pace on the ball, and then you're really like aware and eager to get that second ball and continue to put them under, and you can get shots from distance. You could potentially get a deflection. I mean, I still think there's a lot of value in just whipping balls in. If, to your point, there's still some purpose in terms of our running and our kind of awareness in locking things in once that second ball comes out.
But at that point, it's not so much crosses in the air. They're just crosses along the ground.
Sure.
Which still can be.
There's still value there. It can 100%.
There's still value. But it'll be interesting to see what happens in that position over the next 3 months.
All right, let's talk about Southampton versus Leeds then. Leeds coming off a big 2-1 win over Wolves. Brendan Aronson, I wish they would have given him credit for that goal that he scored. If Harry Kane had done that, I'm pretty sure they would have given it to Harry Kane. Brendan Aronson being an American doesn't get that same type of respect yet. I think he'll start earning it game after game after game. They're going to Southampton. Now, Leeds had a pretty respectable away record, so it wouldn't be a big surprise this last season for them to maybe get a draw or eke something out. But Southampton were up 1-0 on Spurs last week and then crumbled and ended up losing 4-1. I like Leeds to potentially get a result here because they got Chelsea at home the following week. So to continue to get the points,
too. If Everton, who was horrible,
that's true. But you like to think with more time as the season goes along, Chelsea's going to start to get a little bit better at who their first 11 is and whatever. But we could have in 2 weeks' time Pulisic versus Aronson and Pulisic running against Tyler Adams in the middle of midfield. That would be amazing. We'll get hyped for that next week. But what are your thoughts on Leeds? Do you think they can go to Southampton and get something done? And I know the first game was super important for Jesse Marsch, but given what you know about him, how do you think he builds on this? And do you think he makes any changes to his lineup? Because Luis Sinisterra looks like one of his signings from Feyenoord is going to be healthy and available. Liam Cooper, one of their center backs, looks healthy and available now. Adam Forshaw could be another one where he could. Now he has the luxury of making some changes. But if you're Jesse Marsch, do you make any changes coming into this one? Same
No, you keep it going.
Okay.
I think you might introduce some substitutes a little bit earlier, but you keep this group together and see how you can break them down with the press. And I would expect a little bit more success actually against Southampton as opposed to a Wolves team that typically, I have 1% of battery. One sec.
Charlie's down on the battery, everybody. Yeah, I mean, I just thought you had somebody that helped you do all that stuff, Chuck. You know, or they're feeding you off camera and then giving you drinks and all that stuff as he fixes everything. Listen, this is we're having some difficulties. Heath is on the toilet. Charlie's got nobody helping him today. It's a bit of a scramble, and I'm loving every minute of it. It's fantastic. But yes, with regard to Leeds, I'll jump in here really quick and say that I put Brendan Aronson in my fantasy team. I did it. I think he's still going to sneak up on people. Yeah, they're the opponents will be, sure. This American kid, he's just got a lot of energy. He's like the Energizer Bunny, blah, 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 blah. But then he's going to go out there and just start stomping on people's throats, and it's going to be fantastic. So I'm starting Brendan Aronson, my fantasy team, and I highly advise you to do the same. He can get him for 5.5, I think. So that's pretty good value for Brendan Aronson. And I just think he's going to be a difference maker, and I'm incredibly biased. And I'm excited. I'm going to go to Leeds here in the future. So if you guys actually hit me up on ISWT Pod on Twitter and let me know if I have a chance to, you know what I should do? I'm just thinking out loud here. If you guys are listening or watching, I'm going to buy a Leeds Brendan Aronson jersey, or you know what? I'll do a Brendan Aronson jersey and a Tyler Adams jersey. I will buy those and we'll give them away here on In Soccer We Trust. Okay. That's what's happening. I'm going to come back fully loaded with some jerseys, and we want to give them away because we have an amazing community. So thank you for all this support. If you haven't hit like and subscribe, do that on the YouTubes, and hit subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice. Leave us a 5-star review. That would be absolutely fantastic. But that's what I'm going to do, and I just talked myself into it. And Charlie's back. Look at God. How many rooms does he have? Look at this guy. He's all over the place.
I'm in a different room. Here we go.
So Chuck, we just talked about Leeds. I am very curious to see how they're going to perform in week 2. Let's talk, though, a little bit about another American that's playing, and it is going to be Christian Pulisic. We touched upon him a little bit earlier. Chelsea are hosting Tottenham, which is a pretty big game early into the season at Stamford Bridge. Given what we saw from Chelsea against Everton, where they were really lackluster up top, I think Raheem Sterling was probably the busiest and most active of the three. Do you think Pulisic has an outside chance of starting, or do you think Tuchel's going to go with the Havertz, Sterling, Mason Mount front three again?
No, I think he does have a good chance of starting. After a performance like that, typically a coach of that stature makes changes. You don't stick with the same three at that point when it was so – they had no energy. There wasn't great combinations. For me, this is the time where you say, all right, let's give Christian a chance. Let's see what he can do.
This is Thomas Tuchel. This is Thomas Tuchel we're talking about. This isn't about him just handing out chances to Christian Pulisic.
No, but he knows him really well. I mean,
I know.
It's time that Christian gets. He's the first sub into the game for a reason. If you're that close, it would make sense to say, "Hey, let's give him a run."
Okay. Now, what I do want to add is I think that Tottenham are going to be up for this game in a way that Chelsea might not. I think this is a statement game for Antonio Conte and his players. They've made some significant signings. They want to be a force to be reckoned with this season. That's clear. And Conte, obviously a former winner of the Premier League with Chelsea, is going to want to stick at the Chelsea. I really believe that, at Stamford Bridge in particular. I think the emotional weight of what Conte is going to bring, I think could be the X factor. And obviously he's got the players to execute in this game. I don't necessarily like Chelsea based on the performances from each team in week 1, if we're going on form alone, and kind of what we're hearing from Tuchel. But we'll see. I hope that Pulisic starts. I'm not hopeful, and not as hopeful as you, Chuck, but we'll have to wait and see. That game is on Sunday morning. It kicks off 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. And then there's one. Go ahead.
I was going to say, can we talk about Rangers?
We can, but I wanted to do one more game in the Premier League, and then we'll talk about Rangers and Malik Tillman in particular, who was fantastic midweek for Rangers, scoring the deciding goal to get them through or continue to go through Champions League qualifying. Liverpool is at home at Anfield against Crystal Palace. And Crystal Palace did not look good in week 1 against Arsenal. And that center back pairing that was so good last year for them looked a little bit like, just in general, they didn't look very good individually, but then collectively they weren't organizing their team and putting them in good spots. They're getting pulled all over the place. And Crystal Palace never had a grip of the game, even though they were at home at Selhurst Park. Now Crystal Palace travel to Anfield. This is a really tough start to the season for Palace, by the way. Do you think Chris Richards has a chance to maybe sneak in to this team? Because there's a lot of talk that if Chris Richards gets the minutes and plays well in the Premier League against some top opponents, he could be the guy that's starting next to Walker Zimmerman, assuming Walker Zimmerman's the starter come November 21st against Wales.
Yes, I do think that Patrick Vieira would give
after one game. That's my only concern. I just want to throw that out there. Very similar to Pulisic. It's only been one game, so you don't want to like completely pull the plug on some of these guys that you trusted all last season.
Right, and it's not like Crystal Palace is Patrick Vieira is a player that understands the game so well. They're playing Arsenal. It's not like they're playing
a good Arsenal too. Very much better Arsenal.
It's almost like a reinvented Arsenal at this point. But they were playing a dominant team. They weren't playing one of the lower teams like a Bournemouth or an Aston Villa, or So I could see him still giving that same backline a chance, although an opportunity to change it up early on in the season, I definitely see Chris Richards getting at least an opportunity to start and see what he can do.
Okay, so I just want to throw this out there. Now that I think about it some more while you're talking, Chuck, I don't know if I want him to play against Liverpool. Liverpool are going to be pissed. They dropped a point or 2 points against Fulham in the opening weekend. They're going to be flying at home. And maybe Chris Richards can wait after this game. Maybe just wait. The next one's at home. They got to Aston Villa. And when I look at the schedule, they actually have a League Cup match against Oxford away. I bet you we see Chris Richards in that. That's when he's going to make his debut for Palace. That makes a lot of sense, I think, from a coaching perspective. Let's give our guys that were with us the whole time first couple games, and we'll bring in Richards. If he does well against Oxford, that gives me a reason then to start him against Man City the following game. So, there's a couple big names, but after that, it gets a little bit more manageable with Brentford, Newcastle, Man United, Brighton. And so, there's no real easy games, of course, but I'm curious to see.
I'm curious to hear your take on James Sands. So, let's move
the Rangers in. Go ahead.
Right. So, because of center back, so James Sands starting in the third round qualifying of Champions League. They get a clean sheet. They sub him out after they go up 3-0. Do you see him if he's playing center back at Rangers? And I think he's one of those center backs who's comfortable on the ball because he typically was a midfielder throughout his youth career. So, is this someone that you could see sneaking onto the scene?
We had a chance to interview James Sands on CBS Sports HQ, and I asked him this question about his national team hopes and does he still talk to Greg and what the conversation is. And he mentioned that he did talk to Greg and he just needs to get minutes. That's ultimately what Greg's talking about. If he gets minutes and gets to play, then they'll have another conversation about what that looks like moving forward. I do think that I wouldn't be surprised if I saw James Sands in the September friendlies against Japan and Saudi Arabia, because he's playing, Chuck, and because he's playing really solidly. And what I find interesting was that was a big Champions League game because they lost that first leg 2-0 and needed to win 3-0. And for him to be trusted by Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, the manager, in that situation, knowing what's at stake, and he went out and delivered, is really important for his trust within not only between him and the manager, but also the players. And obviously Malik Tillman stepping up and scoring a vital goal, incredibly important as well. And so I think that there's going to start to be that shift in perception of like, we can actually trust these guys. We can rely on them, which is what Americans have to fight through when you go over to Europe. And obviously you lived that firsthand. And I had a taste of it as well when I went on loan to Lech Poznan. It's super important. So I'm excited to see how they play and who they play. And who starts against St. Johnstone this weekend. But next week they play against PSV Eindhoven at home. It's the next phase of the Champions League qualifying. And that is, are they going to be trusted in that? And how do they play against a team like PSV? That's going to be what I look out for. Because it's one thing to play St. Johnstone in the Scottish Premiership. It's another thing to have to play against a pretty good team in PSV, Chuck.
I agree. And and possibly Richie Ledesma.
Ooh, that would be unbelievable, dude.
Yes.
Americans are taking over the world.
Let's go, Americans.
Unbelievable. All right, we're going to call it a show, Chuck. I want to get your final thoughts on anything that you want to discuss, and the floor is yours, my friend. Take it away.
Yeah, I would say just keeping an eye on all the Americans who are abroad, and seeing what they can continue to do and produce. The minutes part is really important. So, a guy like Luca delaTorre, seeing what his introduction may look like. I expect him to get minutes. Yunus Musah playing centrally. I'm really curious to see how that goes. And then Ricardo Pepi, can he finally break in? Is Jordan Pifo continuing to score goals? Those are some of the things that I'll be looking out for. Just of course, because the number 9 is a position that will be dictated on form in most cases. So.
Yeah, and speaking of the number 9, got a couple on MLS that are playing this weekend. FC Cincinnati, Brandon Vasquez is hosting Atlanta United. We'll see how he performs there. FC Dallas is at home, so Jesus Ferreira at home to the San Jose Earthquakes. They got Jeremy Ebobisse, who's obviously scoring a lot of goals as well, kind of on the outside of the radar, but still scoring a lot of goals. So I'm sure that Greg is aware of him and how he's performing. But those are just a couple players for everybody to keep an eye on, along with everybody else that's out there playing in Europe. So it's going to be a great weekend for Americans, or at least that's what we're hoping. So thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. It's Soccer We Trust. Thank you for all of your support. We got 3 great shows coming for you next weekend, including a very special guest that we can't name yet. We're going to tease it, everybody, but it's going to be a lot of fun, like always. So on behalf of producer Dest, producer Alex, Hollywood Hemorrhoid Pierce, that's what we're going to call him now, Charlie Chuck Wagon Davies, I'm Jimmy Conrad saying thank you for listening and watching the Soccer We Trust, and we'll see you on Monday. Later.